Hey, good evening everybody. Welcome to Meteorology Lab. Starting out a Monday here, and we've got moisture and a bit of haze in our part of Texas. So that's feeding a little area of storms up to the northwest. And here we go. Let's start out with the Weather Center and look at the products, starting with the radar. You can see that none of these cells this evening looks particularly strong. In fact, it's got kind of a linear appearance, stretching from about east of Wichita Falls to a little bit north, just northeast of Abilene. And you can see that each of these cells, they've got a little bit of a convex appearance, indicating a little bit of outflow in these storms. We had a storm earlier that's all the way up near Ardmore at this hour. That started out looking pretty good back around Bowie, Texas. In fact, here's what it looked like earlier. And this is what we used for the title card. And you can see it right there. The only thing is the center of the core is pretty much centered in the entire echo. So instead of sitting down in the southern part of the echo, the heavier intensities are towards the very middle of the storm, and that's a good indicator that it's starting to fall apart. Although the reflectivity values were definitely very heavy earlier, but you can see this convex structure. That's the outflowish appearance that we were talking about. And then we followed a little bit longer, and you can see that the reflectivity started diminishing, and hardly anything left. In fact, I guess it's the Marietta cell. That's the remains of that storm. Now, what if you're not sure? Let's go back and look at the Bowie area. So you're looking at that, and you're not too sure. Maybe there's rotation in it. Indeed, that's what you have to check there, is the velocity products. And this is the storm relative velocity. So this has taken the base velocity that you see here, and you can see that it's all outbound because the storm is moving to the northeast and the radar is back this way. So we subtract out the southwest to northeast motion and we get this. And we can see that the reflectivities are pretty spread out, or the velocities are pretty spread out. Here's the outbounds and here's the inbounds. Only this very tiny area where they come together. However, what we usually look for is a much tighter gradient of that velocity. This is very weak. In fact, the values about 19 out and about 10 in, so that's only about 20 to 30 knots a shear. So right there you can kind of see the writing on the wall. We look for time consistency and also vertical consistency. We go up to higher tilts and we try to see if there's any rotation up there. And we may have to kind of adjust the storm motion vector, but this looked very weak earlier. So yeah, I was about to bring up the channel earlier, like towards about 2 or 3. I thought about doing a little special presentation here, you know, kind of follow it hour by hour, but this wasn't a particularly good day, and I think we're going to focus maybe on the moderate and high risks and the weekends when we have a lot of chasers out, and we'll try to cover those too. And some of the streams that we're going to do are going to be Patreon only, and we do have a lot of Patreon donors here, and if not, here's the card. There it is. Don't have any new Patreon donors. The last couple of donors we had were Shirley and Tom. That was about a week and a half ago. And those are the only 2 new Patreon donors we've had this year. So there's the link up there at the top right if you want to send something our way. And that'll help invest in keeping the stream up. So back to the charts. Looking further down the line, none of these cells particularly strong. Maybe a little bit of wind and hail, maybe in a couple of them. Now this one down here around Stamford, Anson, this one looks a little bit better there. And you can kind of see the familiar structure. It's a little bit of a hint of a supercell in there. This could be just a severe multicell, but let's take a look at the velocities in there. And we got to keep in mind the radar now is that way. In fact, yeah, it's way down here. So we're shooting it this way. So we're going to be looking for, if this is cyclonically rotating, we're going to look at inbounds on that side and outbounds on that side. The outbounds are going to be cool, or hang on a second. Make sure I don't have my palette messed up. Okay, yeah, the outbounds, those are going to be warm shades, red, and then the cools are going to be the green that you see right here. So let's see here. Got some outbounds here, inbounds right there. So that's probably a little differential stuff going on. This here is probably a little bit higher up in the storm. What I'm looking for especially here are couplets, and kind of around here is where I'm looking in. I don't really see anything going on there. Go up to a higher tilt, nothing. So these things are not looking very strong either. And then further down the line we've got a couple of slightly higher base storms. This one looks pretty good. This is north of San Angelo. And we'll check for rotation in there. Seeing very strong outbound. This is probably, it's probably aliased. Let's see if we can, yeah, see, hang on a second. Okay, there we go. All right, so there's our velocity right there. This is pure velocity, so we're going to start with this and kind of get a look at what's going on in the storm. The reds are going to be your outbound. The radar's out this way. So we've got a little bit of convergence showing in the storm. The elevation, we've got to get that too. This is up at about 8,000 feet. And a little bit of a hint of cyclonic rotation in that storm, but this is mostly convergence. So we'll take a look up aloft, and it looks like the motion towards the radar kind of takes over at that point. We would have to look at some of the storm relative velocity products. So let me fix that for you guys. And let's see here. Okay, there we go. We can see a little bit of rotation up in the storm. So the center of that is located right there. This is up at about 13,000 feet. And you can see the center of the rotation right there. So that's pretty much the meso in that notch right there. And we compare that to the low-level scan. And that's showing us that this is all the updraft area right there. So that's probably a fairly decent little storm, probably a little bit of a wall cloud, but not much else going on at this time. Anyway, that's the tour there of the storms for now. Let's pick up the charts here. Couple of severe thunderstorm watches from Wichita Falls down to Sanderson. And the let's take a look at the storm reports. Mostly hail along that same corridor there. These are what the storms looked like earlier, a couple of hours ago. You can see a lot of cirrus overcast, which is going to make going visual kind of hard. And there you can see the numerous overshooting tops around the Wichita Falls area, and some more back north of Abilene. So we'll take a look at the setup. Don't have much in the way of upper air charts. We're going to have to kind of look at what SPC has. So we'll go up to 300 millibars there. This is the 300 millibar rapid refresh. And we're showing the polar front jet from northwestern Mexico up to Iowa. So the strongest jet is up in the Texas Panhandle and in southeast Colorado, up in that area right there. These storms are just kind of on the periphery of all that. Take a look at the 850 millibar analysis and take a look at the moisture. The red is going to be the isotherms, and the green, which is a little bit more important here, that's going to be the mixing ratio. Actually, I think that's going to be the dew point in Celsius. So we can see the 10 Celsius isodrosotherm coming up like this, basically from the Rio Grande up to the Dallas area and up to Fort Smith. And one thing that's very important about this is if you look at the wind vectors, 25, 30, see we got 25 here and 20. We've got some fairly strong winds that we did not have a couple days ago. So these are actually helping to augment the storms. So we're going to need to keep an eye on that as we go through the model products. All right, before I go much further, let me take a look at the chat here. Let's take a close-up infrared look at the storms here. You can see the cold tops in black colors here. So if your radar is completely down across the region, you can kind of use this to find the stronger cells. Okay, for tonight, let's see here. We've got quite a crowd here. We've got Brett Dean, 36 in... Forgot where Brett is. I think he's up in the northeast or up north. Shirley Keys, 37 in Michigan. Light rain and sleet tonight. CDMA checking in with 77 there in Houston. The North is not getting a break this year. Looking at that 3 TBS spike, and Erica Baker, Coffeyville weather, 60s, dew point 61 up there. Got Burl H there, 36, and rain in Iowa City, Iowa. CDMA says the stream is looking good. We've got Ryan there. Got Jeff Kropp, Storm Chaser 75. Rare severe thunderstorm in Hawaii about an hour ago. Interesting. Yeah, we're getting towards Kona storm season. In fact, I think we're right in the middle of it. Mike Estwick reporting 38 in rain and snow on the way. Carl Berghoff reminding us to like, and Jeff Kropp mentioning the V-notching in the Texas storms. And I'm talking about that V-notch right there. This is kind of, yeah, right there. Watch that northern cell, and you can see that what happens is we get kind of a downstream from the updraft, where you have the updraft, the overshooting updraft. There's kind of a warm area downstream, and then kind of the cold area kind of forms a V-notch, and you kind of see that right there. So that's a good indicator that you have a temporarily strong cell right at that location. A couple of them up and down the line. All right, let's take a look at the moisture. There's the water vapor imagery, showing that polar front jet all the way down into northwest Mexico, probably coupled with the subtropical jet. I'd be looking for that possibly in that region right there. And that's bringing a lot of mid and upper level moisture up into Texas and Oklahoma there. And then just a quick look out west. We've had the troughing move into the backside right there. So this is all part of the cold air mass, and looks like we've got that other system affecting Hawaii there. You can really see that there. couple storms, looks like just north of the island, maybe one or two cells out around the Hilo area. And some pretty good cells extending northward, and that's part of the system that we see right there. So that'll probably be heading into California possibly in a few days. Then just a quick look at the Fort Worth sounding. This is how it looked this morning, and definitely quite a bit of moisture. The dew points at the bottom of the sounding were about 17 Celsius, which is about 63 Fahrenheit. And it pretty much stayed in the low 60s all the way up to about 5,000 feet. So that's definitely some very good moisture there. And let's just do a quick parcel lift. I'm going to go a little bit below this part of the sounding trace. I'm assuming that we don't have to get all the way up to the convective temperature to get storms to form. And looks like our updraft plot runs like that, so that gives us plenty of CAPE. And that's quite a change today because of this steep lapse rate from about 5,000 up to about 18,000 feet. So this is kind of the net result of that upper level lift working through the mid-levels of the atmosphere. Let's see, we don't have any other soundings in the moist sector. I guess we can look at Midland, but I think they're back in the dry air. It's like a little bit of residual moisture there. Dew points in the low 60s there, but very shallow there at Midland. But you can see the steep lapse rates up there from about 5,000 MSL up to about 18,000 right there. And then we'll look at, I guess we can check out Norman. Showing the moisture is a little bit weaker there. At the top of the moist layer, we're only seeing about 52, 53 dew points. So let me just do a quick parcel lift. I guess we're going to have to use maybe 86, 87 degrees. And quite a bit of CAPE up there also. Okay, then just a quick look at the mesoscale. I guess we'll start with the synoptic scale. Anyway, that front that we had yesterday, it was located something like that. You can see that that's lifted north up to about Oklahoma City and Springfield there. So we're dealing mostly with a dry line extending down to Wichita Falls and San Angelo. At least for now it looks that way. WPC going with that front way up to the north. So let's check it out on the charts. In fact, yeah, I think we can get a little closer here. Okay, so the air mass just south of Dallas-Fort Worth looks like about 81 over 60. So we go up to the north, and looks like it actually cools down a little bit along the Red River. So we go from 80 over 60 down to 73 over 63. So I'm thinking probably our warm front is a little bit further south. So at this time it looks like it is from north of Little Rock to just south of Wichita Falls, and it looks like there's another front up to the north. Looks like a fresh outbreak of cold air. And let's find the dry line. It's going to go from about Sanderson to about Sweetwater. Then it appears that goes up towards around Altus. And I do have a webcam on the way, so very soon we'll be able to do a hand analysis here. There's our boundary right there, so it appears a lot of our cells are forming near that triple point right there, just north of Seymour. That boundary is definitely there. You can see the difference in the air mass between here and south of the Red River. So I think that frontal position they had there, that's a little bit off, I think. Maybe they're looking at more of a big picture as far as that goes. And one thing that we can look at is the theta E. So I'll go to moisture, theta E, and this will give us where some of the best parcels are located. You can see a little bit of a bullseye here around Abilene due to that 65 dew point. That dew point looks a little bit off there. Dew points in the low 60s all the way up to Fort Worth, so this is probably what I would call a moisture axis. And the rest of it, I think we can pick that up with the model data. So let's go ahead and keep things moving and get into the model section. And we'll start out with the high resolution rapid refresh. It's got one cluster around Fort Wichita Falls, some more down to Abilene. That all looks pretty reasonable. And let's just see what the trend is overnight. Looks like a new MCS off to the southwest. Activity kind of maintaining itself overnight. And it looks like after midnight it starts diminishing a little bit, becoming greater in area, but the intensities looks like they start falling off and we get less organization of the cells. However, it looks like they do continue heading on to Fort Worth. So why are they a lot stronger tonight than they were last night? We can look at the 850. This is up at about 5,000 feet. And here again we see the strong south winds across Texas, 20 to 30 knots there. So that's helping to maintain these storms as they continue northwest of Fort Worth. So it only looks like at this point around midnight, just after midnight, they start veering. That'll diminish the bulk shears a little bit. But it's that strong southerly flow that helps to maintain that MCS. So we should indeed see these going on for much of the night. Alright, so we'll take a look at the forecast here. Look, I guess we'll use the GFS. So tomorrow morning, GFS going for that MCS from about Springfield down to Oklahoma City, and that's along the leading edge of this cold front that's coming south. And then during the evening, that's the big question right there. Once we start adding in heat in this moist sector here, what's going to happen? Looks like we're probably going to see more redevelopment in North Texas, possibly down south of I-20. Most of the activity looks like it'll concentrate along that cold front from about Fort Smith down to the Dallas area. You can see we've got a pretty strong onshore component, which hints at a bit of a low-level jet, so we may see storms tomorrow night also. So this is about 3 in the morning. You can see the activity moving into East Texas there. And then more redevelopment further south along the Gulf Coast towards Wednesday evening. So it looks pretty wet for Texas, Louisiana, and Arkansas here over the next few days. High pressure comes in the wake of that 1020 millibar high coming into the Midwest and into Texas. Looks like we got storms there in Mississippi and Alabama for Thursday. So we'll have to keep our eye on that there. Things will be moving east on Friday. Looks like things kind of dries as high pressure sinks into the southeast. However, we have this very strong Canadian front coming south. It's only March. I mean, we're not over with winter by any stretch of the imagination until we get to about early to mid-April. So we've got our first Canadian system coming southeast. The main low heads up into the central Great Lakes, the tail end. Cold front from Illinois down to Texas. So that'll move rapidly southward and be through much of the region by the end of the weekend. So big Canadian high pressure covering things for Sunday. Then we see the Gulf start opening up on Monday. A few showers start picking up in Texas around Monday into Tuesday next week. Here comes the approach of a Canadian system. The troughing associated with that will help augment these storms. So it does look a little bit more active next week. The north part of that system heads into the Great Lakes, and the tail end moves into the Midwest and the lower Mississippi Valley on Tuesday and Wednesday. Then kind of a break around midweek. More storms for Friday around the 5th and 6th. This looks like it's along a warm front, so that's certainly got some potential there. Anywhere from Oklahoma City up to Wichita. The frontal system associated with that moves east, and it leaves this tail end boundary in North Texas there. So it looks like we could see things flare up again towards the 9th and 10th. There's some more right there. And then very strong height falls out across the Rockies. You can see the troughing out in this region right here. So it looks like more potential for storms around the 9th up to the 10th. And I think we'll be getting into some chase action here around the second week of April. Okay, one last look at those cells up in North Texas. Starting with the Red River. These look kind of disorganized. Further down the line towards Throckmorton, Haskell, these cells also look a little bit disorganized. The one around Stamford and Anson looks a little bit stronger, but you can see the core of the storms is pretty well centered within the body of that storm. So as you can see here, the storm relative velocities have been on the weak side. And then further down the line, this one around I-20 is also looking weak. And then the tail end of the storm, this one is holding together pretty well. This is going to be about 30 to 40 miles north of San Angelo and south of Sweetwater. Don't see a very strong couplet in there. Storm relative velocity showing, yeah, not much significant in that storm. So it just looks like a little bit of a hailer. Very typical for that part of Texas. And as far as what's going to happen over the next 1 to 2 hours, not too sure, but we can kind of refer back to the surface chart and go back to the basics and find where the best elongation of the photograph is. And it actually looks like the area just west and northwest of Fort Worth has the best potential. That's also the best theta E. But we are starting to lose daylight here, so kind of a very limited time until the storms in this area, those will start diminishing here shortly. However, you know, as I mentioned, looking at that high-resolution rapid refresh, even though they probably will diminish in terms of intensity, we would expect to see those kind of grow aerially. And there was that hint at an MCS picking up just west and southwest of Abilene a little bit later this evening. Okay, that's about all I got for this evening. I appreciate you watching the webcast. Let me take one last look at chat here. Discussion there about the forecast, and CDMA saw the day 3 outlook. And Carl Berghoff was working on the Gerald Texas tornado day when the stream notification came in. I'm guessing that was the 1997 day. We were chasing up in Oklahoma on the 25th and 26th, and we were taking a rest when Gerald hit, so we definitely missed that one. Anyway, thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.